Welcome to Beyond Known History. Today, we dive into the quintessential maritime mystery, a puzzle so baffling it created the modern concept of the ghost ship. This is the story of the Mary Celeste. On December 5, 1872, 400 miles east of the Azores, the Canadian brigantine Dei Gratia spotted a ship drifting erratically. The captain of the Dei Gratia, David Morehouse, recognized the vessel immediately. It was the Mary Celeste, a ship that had sailed from New York bound for Genoa, Italy, 8 days ahead of his own. Captain Morehouse knew the Celeste's commander, Captain Benjamin Briggs, personally. When the Celeste didn't respond to signals, Morehouse knew something was terribly wrong. A boarding party was dispatched. What they found would become the foundation of a 150-year-old enigma. The ship was utterly deserted. Not a single soul was on board. All 10 people had vanished. Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and the 7 crewmen. Yet, this was no wreck. The ship was seaworthy. A 6-month supply of food and water remained intact. The cargo of 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol was largely undisturbed. The personal belongings of the captain and crew, their sea chests, and even their tobacco pipes were left behind, things a 19th century sailor would not willingly abandon.
To understand the Mary Celeste, we must start at the beginning, when she wasn't the Mary Celeste at all. The ship began her career in Nova Scotia's Bay of Fundy, a region rich in shipbuilding heritage. Her keel was laid in 1860, and she was launched in 1861 under the name the Amazon. The first vessel built by the Spencer's Island shipyard, the Amazon's career was cursed almost immediately. Her very first captain, Robert McClellan, fell ill with severe pneumonia before the ship had even cleared the Bay of Fundy. He was brought ashore to the home of one of the owners, Jacob Spicer, where he quickly died. The very first thing the Amazon delivered in her career was the body of her first captain. The bad luck continued. Under her next captain, the ship snared on fishing wires in Eastport, Maine, requiring repairs. Later, while sailing down the River Thames, she collided with a British brig, sinking the other vessel. In 1867, she ran aground near Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, sustaining major damage. The owners abandoned the ship, but she was quickly salvaged and flipped, an act suggesting her damage was less severe than reported. Eventually, she was purchased by American Richard W. Haynes, who renamed her the Mary Celeste, a name meaning Heavenly Mary or Mary of Heaven. Haynes registered the ship in New York, but failed to pay import duties, leading to her seizure and eventual sale to former sea captain James Winchester. Winchester, upon inspection, found the Celeste to be terribly rotten and poured $11,500 into a near-complete rebuild in 1872, slightly increasing her size and adding an additional deck. It was this newly rebuilt, heavily invested-in vessel that was put under the command of Captain Benjamin Briggs. Captain Briggs, an American master mariner whose ancestors came over on the Mayflower, was highly respected and deeply religious. For his first and only crossing aboard the Mary Celeste, he decided to bring his family, his wife, Sarah Elizabeth Briggs, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia Matilda. Their 8-year-old son, Arthur, was left behind for school, a decision that saved his life. The Mary Celeste departed New York on November 7, 1872. She was loaded with 1,701 barrels of volatile, denatured industrial alcohol, bound for Genoa, Italy. This alcohol was not for drinking. It was industrial grade, meant for use as fuel or solvent. The first part of the voyage was difficult, battling heavy weather to reach the Azores. The last entry in the ship's logbook, found on board by the salvage crew, was dated 5 a.m. on November 25, 1872. A final notation on the log slate, a temporary chalkboard, was dated 8 a.m. that same morning, placing the ship just 6 nautical miles from Santa Maria, the easternmost island of the Azores. 10 days later, on December 5th, the Dei Gratia found her 400 miles east of the Azores. When the Mary Celeste was brought into the port of Gibraltar on December 13, 1872, the routine salvage claim immediately initiated a full investigation. The Vice Admiralty Court was presided over by the Attorney General of Gibraltar, Frederick Solly Flood. Solly Flood was immediately convinced of foul play and mischief. He dismissed the idea of a natural accident, clinging instead to the theory that the crew, in a drunken frenzy, had murdered Captain Briggs and his family. He searched for evidence, focusing on a sword found under Captain Briggs' bed, stains on the rail, and marks on the ship's bow. The ensuing 3-month inquiry, however, produced no evidence of a crime. The blood on the sword and rail was scientifically determined to be rust. The axe marks were concluded to be natural splintering from construction and heavy weather. Solly Flood was forced to release the ship, but he sought his revenge. Though the ship and cargo were valued at $46,000, the court awarded the Dei Gratia crew only a paltry 1/5 or 1/6 of the total value. This abnormally low reward was a public indictment, signaling Solly Flood's continued, unproven belief in foul play and forever tainting the legitimate salvors in the public eye. The real mystery was complicated, but the public craved simplicity and violence. For a decade, the Mary Celeste was a curiosity until 1884, when Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, anonymously published a fictional short story. Doyle's sensationalist tale, which described a lurid murder and was later often mistaken for a factual account, permanently polluted the facts and launched the Celeste into legend. It is critical to separate the common myths from the documented reality established by the Gibraltar hearings. The myth. The ship's name was the Mary Celeste. The reality. It was the Mary Celeste. The Marie spelling was an error introduced by Conan Doyle. The myth. Fresh, hot food and warm cups of tea were found on the table. The reality. No food was on the table. The galley stove was cold and knocked out of place. The myth. The ship was found in perfect condition, all sails set. The reality. The sails were tattered and in disarray, and the hold contained 3.5 feet of water. The true evidence points away from pirates or mutiny, because the valuable cargo and money were untouched. Furthermore, the missing items tell the story of an intentional, organized evacuation. First, the entire lifeboat, a small yawl, was missing. Crucially, the captain's sextant, chronometer, and navigation book were gone. A captain only takes his navigation instruments if he intends to survive and navigate from a smaller craft. This means Captain Briggs chose to leave the ship. The question is, why?
The most logical scenario combines two modern theories, creating a terrifying sequence of events that explains the rational captain's fatal decision. Theory 1. The pressure wave explosion. The ship was carrying 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol. During a cool departure and rough seas, pressure changes and temperature shifts likely caused dangerous fumes to build up in the hold. The ship's hatches were secured due to the storm, preventing ventilation. Chemist Dr. André Sella investigated this possibility. He found that if these alcohol fumes ignited, perhaps from a spark caused by barrels rubbing, or an oil lamp, the result would not be a catastrophic fire, but a pressure wave explosion. This spectacular, terrifying ball of flame and accompanying wave of cool air would leave no scorch marks. Such an event would cause a massive, deafening whoomph, terrifying the crew, and likely blowing open the fore and lazarette hatches. Theory 2. The cascade of failures. This event likely happened while the ship was already under extreme stress. Captain Briggs was a meticulous navigator, but he was battling heavy weather. The log slate entry places them extremely close to land, Santa Maria. Maritime experts theorized that coal dust or construction debris had fouled the ship's bilge pumps. When Briggs took on 3.5 feet of water in the storm, he tried to pump it out, only to find the pump clogged. He ordered the pump disassembled to fix it. Crucially, he now had 3.5 feet of water in the hold, no functional pump, and therefore no way to check if the ship was still sinking. The synthesis. The timeline likely looked like this. Step 1. High alert. Captain Briggs is already anxious, possibly lost due to a faulty chronometer, and unable to monitor the potentially rising water level because his pump is disassembled. Step 2. The catalyst. A sudden, terrifying pressure wave explosion rattles the ship. The decks groan loudly, perhaps sounding like the hull is breaking. Alcohol fumes fill the air. Step 3. The decision. Fearing his ship is sinking due to the water and about to catastrophically explode due to the fumes, Captain Briggs, a family man, makes a safety-first call, a temporary precautionary evacuation. Step 4. The evacuation. The crew quickly gathers the essentials, including the captain's navigation tools. The small lifeboat is lowered from the port side, and a section of railing is removed to facilitate this. Step 5. The tragedy. The lifeboat is tethered to the Mary Celeste with a long line, allowing the crew to wait at a safe distance from the possible explosion. However, the weather quickly whips up. The remaining sails, hastily left flying, catch the wind. The Mary Celeste pulls away violently, snapping the tow line and leaving the small, open lifeboat hopelessly adrift. 10 days later, the Dei Gratia found the Mary Celeste, a perfectly sound vessel, still sailing 378 miles from the point of abandonment. The crew in the open boat, battling the wind and rain in the deep ocean, were lost forever.
The tragedy of the Mary Celeste was fueled by a moment of rational, but ultimately fatal, miscalculation. Despite the acquittal of the Dei Gratia crew, the ship could never shake her haunted reputation. She passed through 17 owners, all reportedly losing money. She was seen as cursed. In 1879, her captain fell ill and died, the third commander to meet an unfortunate end while engaged with the vessel. The final act of the Celeste's life was not a mystery, but a crime. In 1884, Captain G.C. Parker and the ship's owner concocted an insurance fraud scheme. They loaded the ship with worthless junk, rotten fish and rancid ale, insured it for a high value, and intentionally sailed the Mary Celeste onto the Rochelaure Reef near Haiti. In a final twist, the Mary Celeste, which had survived so much, refused to sink. She remained lodged on the reef, allowing authorities to investigate and discover the barratry, insurance fraud. The captain and owner were brought to court, though they avoided jail time. Yet, within 6 months of the intentional wreck, the owner, Captain Parker, and his first mate were all dead, feeding the narrative of the cursed ship. The Mary Celeste endures, not because its fate is unknowable,
but because its story is a perfect storm of human elements, a tragedy compounded by a biased investigation, magnified by sensationalist fiction, and cemented by the enduring power of a good ghost story. It is a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are those we create ourselves.